The Guv'nor, the brutal rise and tragic fall of Lenny McLean. Leonard John McClean was born on the 9th of April, 1949 in Hoxton, in the tough East End of London. From the very beginning, life dealt him a savage hand. His father died when he was young, leaving the family vulnerable. His stepfather, Jim Irwin, was a violent alcoholic who unleashed relentless physical abuse on Lenny and his siblings. By the age of 10, Lenny had already suffered multiple broken bones, including fractures to his legs and arms. The constant beatings forged a deep rage and an unbreakable will to never be dominated again. When his uncle Jimmy Spinks finally intervened and gave Irwin a severe beating, the abuser was driven out, but the damage to young Lenny was permanent. Violence became both his shield and his language. As Lenny grew into a towering figure, 6'3" and eventually weighing over 20 stone of solid muscle, he channeled that rage into the streets. He became a feared bouncer, working the doors of some of London's roughest pubs and nightclubs. Stories spread of him throwing out troublemakers with terrifying ease. He earned the nickname 10 Men Len, because it supposedly took 10 men to hold him down during one particularly fierce confrontation. His reputation as an enforcer grew. He mixed with East End underworld figures, including associations with the Cray twins, working as a debt collector and bodyguard when needed. McClean claimed to have been involved in between 2,000 and 3,000 unlicensed fights over his career, bar brawls, street scraps, and organized bare-knuckle contests that operated outside the rules of official boxing. In the late 1970s, McClean stepped into the underground world of unlicensed boxing, where there were no gloves, no commissions, and often no mercy. His most famous battles came in a brutal trilogy against Roy "Pretty Boy" Shaw, another hardened East End fighter and former armed robber who had built his own fearsome name on the circuit. The first fight in 1977 saw Shaw stop McClean early. Lenny protested loudly, claiming the gloves had been tampered with to restrict his movement. He demanded a rematch. In the second bout, a more prepared and aggressive McClean swarmed Shaw, landing a devastating right hand that knocked him clean out of the ring. Shaw managed to survive into the second round, but McClean's power proved decisive. Their rivalry reached its climax in the third fight at the Rainbow Theatre in Finsbury Park in September 1978. McClean ended it with a savage first-round knockout, cementing his status as the undisputed Guv'nor, the hardest unlicensed fighter in Britain. These bare-knuckle wars became East End legend, talked about in pubs for decades. McClean's life off the cobbles was equally turbulent. One night, while working the door at a nightclub, he became involved in a violent altercation with a man named Gary Humphreys. McClean struck Humphreys, breaking his jaw. The man was ejected from the club and later got into a scuffle with police. The next morning, McClean received a devastating call. Humphreys was dead. He was arrested and initially charged with murder. The charge was reduced to manslaughter, but McClean protested his innocence from the start, claiming the police held a vendetta against him due to his associations with the Crays. At the Old Bailey trial, dramatic evidence emerged. A pathologist testified that the neck injuries likely responsible for Humphrey's death had probably been caused by a police stranglehold applied after the ejection from the club. McClean was acquitted of manslaughter. However, he was convicted of grievous bodily harm for the broken jaw and served an 18-month prison sentence. Upon hearing the manslaughter verdict, McClean reportedly burst into song in the courtroom, singing Monty Python's "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." Even behind bars, his reputation followed him. McClean continued to project an image of unbreakable strength. When he emerged, he returned to the doors and the fight scene, but the years of violence, heavy drinking, and steroid use began to take a toll on his body. He promoted unlicensed boxing events and managed fighters, keeping his hand in the game that had defined him. In the 1990s, McClean decided to tell his full, unfiltered story. His autobiography, The Guv'nor, co-written with Peter Gerard, became a bestseller. It laid bare the abuse, the thousands of fights, the underworld connections, the prison time, and the code he lived by: loyalty, respect, and never backing down. The book painted a complex portrait. A man capable of terrifying violence but also protective of his family and community in his own way. As his fighting days wound down, a surprising new chapter opened. Film director Guy Ritchie cast the 49-year-old McClean as Barry the Baptist in the gangster comedy Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. McClean brought raw authenticity to the role, an intimidating yet charismatic presence on screen. The film captured the gritty, humorous underbelly of London crime that McClean knew intimately. Filming was underway when McClean began feeling unwell. He initially dismissed the symptoms as flu. Doctors diagnosed pleurisy, but further tests revealed advanced lung cancer that had already spread to his brain. Lenny McLean died on the 28th of July, 1998 in Bexley, London, at the age of just 49, only weeks before the film's release. The movie was dedicated to his memory, and his performance earned praise as a memorable debut that hinted at what might have been. Lenny McLean's life was a raw saga of survival and dominance. From the broken bones of a violent childhood in Hoxton to ruling the unlicensed bare-knuckle circuit as the Guv'nor, he embodied the brutal code of the old East End. He faced down rivals in legendary fights, survived a murder charge in one of the most talked-about trials of its time, and finally stepped into the spotlight as an actor just as his body gave out. His story is filled with contradictions. A man who inflicted and endured immense pain, yet who inspired fierce loyalty from those around him. Books, documentaries, and the cult status of Lock, Stock have kept his legend alive long after his death. In the end, cancer proved to be the one opponent the Guv'nor could not defeat. But in the streets, the gyms, and the smoky backrooms of London, Lenny McLean remains a symbol of raw, unyielding strength, the hardest man in Britain, whose name still echoes whenever tales of the old-school underworld are told. If you like this one, like and follow for more. I will adding new stories on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday. My next one, The Rise and Relentless Fall of Curtis Warren, will be added Wednesday.